Hey, everybody. Welcome to the weekend warm-up, dynastyprosfootball.com. I'm Brendan Booth at Big Boned FFB on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Mike Lindberg at FF Canuck 99.
Hey guys, welcome in. It's been a great, first 2 weeks of the season. It's gone by pretty quick. I can't believe we're already talking about week 3 here.
So fast, so
I
fast.
know how long how long the off season seems. It's almost sad that we are headed into week 3 already. I thought this week we'd see less injuries. However, some major players went down in week 2,
Yeah.
leaving us scrambling heading into week 3.
As bad as the Aaron Rodgers injury was, then Nick Chubb was like, hold my beer.
I know.
And two players got injured on that play. Just ridiculous. It's like one thing happens and everything cascades. But I have some injury updates to my starts and sits this week, so we'll get into that in a second. And as always, that's what we're doing. We're bringing you the news. We're talking about week 2. We're bringing you some of the injury updates, and we're bringing you starts, sits, and for those who stream like myself, we're bringing streaming options. So we'll get into that. And Mike's got the notes. What happened in week 2, Mike?
Well, you talked about Nick Chubb already. Man, he was having himself a game too. I could just imagine how that would have ended. Best pure runner in the league. It's just heartbreaking to see him when the cart went out. A huge blow to the Browns. Jerome Ford came in relief that looked pretty good. The Browns made a head scratcher though yesterday and signing back Kareem Hunt. So the Browns told us in the preseason they preferred Ford for the price they were letting Hunt go in free agency for. So Chubb going down, whole lot cloudier that backfield. What's your take on the Hunt situation and the signing in Cleveland?
Well, I'm kind of relieved because in the Scott Fish Bowl in the second round, I was planning on taking either Nick Chubb or Saquon, whoever fell to me, and both of them got taken. I had the 6th pick; they got taken at the 8th and the 7th, so I missed out on both and panicked and took T.J. Hawkinson. So that kind of worked out in my favor at this point. Not that that's I'm celebrating any injuries. That Chubb injury was hardcore. I know a lot of Steelers fans, and I knew as soon as you heard the groan from all of the Steelers fans and the way that the Steelers fans um, basically stood up for Chubb and gave him his proper respect, I knew that it was bad, even having not seen the injury. And then I happened upon it on Twitter, and it it messed with my head a little bit. I've watched people do that before, and it's never a good scene. As far as the backfield goes, I was sitting on Jerome Ford in my dynasty league last year, and I had such a huge rookie draft that he just didn't hold on with the numbers game, so I had to let him go. However, I knew that at some point he was going to get his shot. I was looking forward to Hunt leaving, and at some point Chubb leaving and Ford taking over. So I've been anticipating that. It's just in that league I wasn't able to take advantage. I'll get into the Ford thing more when I do my starts and sits,
Okay.
because I do have a take on the situation. Just before we get into that, I'm not afraid of Hunt doing anything to take away from Ford's production. I see him as the clear RB1 in Cleveland. The Browns obviously think that he's capable of taking the lead. Hunt, I think, was brought in as insurance, and that's basically about it. He's not necessarily part of their huge plans. It's just they had to do something, and Hunt knows the system. He's been there before, and he just had a nice little break.
Yeah. Okay. I got a little pushback on that. I think that Hunt might actually have some sort of role there that maybe more than people think. Just based off how he was holding out, I think he was looking for more money in the end. He's he's probably washed. But I think that Cleveland's got a little bit more plans. It could be more of like a 60-40 split Ford to Hunt, but we'll see how it shakes out. I just wanted your opinion on that, and
Yeah,
absolutely, I
that's
think,
totally valid. Totally
yeah,
valid.
we'll see. We'll see. Cam Akers headed to the Vikings to get his fresh start. hard to predict how this backfield will shake out. The Rams and McVay clearly had their reservations with Akers, so perhaps all the play he got at the end of last year was just to showcase him as a suitor. I don't know. Who knows? Does any who emerges in this backfield, or is it more of like a running back by committee, do you think?
It's so hard to read at this point just because Akers is new to Minnesota. He's not new to the system because he's played in that system before. It's a derivative of Sean McVay's system, so they know what they're getting. But the fact of the matter is, he was demoted, I guess you could say, twice in Sean McVay's offense. So is the production going to be there? I don't know. Alexander Mattison is not the answer in Minnesota. And a lot of people are kind of banking on Tyson Chandler. This just muddies up the water for your Tyson Chandler shares if you were waiting on him to be a second half breakout once they decide that Mattison isn't going to be the answer. So it looks like what they might do is go with Akers as if Madison's not working out, they go with Akers instead of Chandler, which knocks him back again. But again, it's such a muddy situation and so confusing. They also have Kenny Ngwangwu, who's on the injured reserve list, and he's a guy who has a lot of talent and was playing in special teams, showing the team that he should have a place on the team. So what do they do when he comes back? They didn't really give up much for Akers, so you can't really say they won't lose a lot if they cut him. Basically like a 2 year from now future 6th rounder or 7th rounder, I think. So they don't have a lot invested in him. So we'll see how it plays out. If he can outproduce Madison in limited time, I think he'll earn the job. But that's another backfield that I'm staying away from.
Yeah, and that's fair. I'm on board with that. I don't know yet, and I would have to see maybe a game or two. And I'm not willing to invest right now in the unknown. So especially after suffering an Achilles injury, coming back, kind of been in a doghouse, just a murky situation. And the way that the Vikings are passing right now, I can't even see them reverting to the run. They're going to be in
Right.
shootouts the whole season.
It's almost like as if they could just go with Madison, know that he's not going to produce anything, and all he's doing is just carrying a ball so that they don't pass on every down.
Exactly. And they
Right.
made they may have brought an Akers in just to be that goal line guy to punch it in every so often because
Sure.
he's probably a little bit more effective at that than Madison is. So Deontay Johnson placed on the IR on Sunday after telling media on Friday he was day-to-day. So after that showing on Monday, I am not in on any Steeler offensive players outside of maybe George Pickens in the right spot. But it's hard to predict when he will break loose for one of those big plays. Perhaps maybe this week versus your Raiders.
Perhaps. Maybe stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Austin Eckler hasn't practiced yet this week and is looking doubtful again. We all thought that Joshua Kelly would fill in nicely last week, but struggled against a good Tennessee run defense. He'll get the Vikings, who got ran all over by Swift last week. So if Eckler is out, I am looking for a bounce back game by Kelly. What do you think?
Eckler is trending out, and not everybody thought that Josh Kelly would fill in nicely last week.
Uh,
I had Josh Kelly as a sit because of the Tennessee defense.
Yeah.
So again, stay tuned.
Okay. Awesome. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson both going into this game with some doubt. Looks like Aaron Jones might actually play, which is a great sign for the people that were without him in week 2 after such a big showing in week 1. Christian Watson looks doubtful, so look for those guys to step up again. Jaden Reed had a nice week 2, so hopefully we can see more of him moving forward.
We heard in the preseason about how Jaden Reed was going to take over as the target leader at some point. He has not done that, but he's justified his ability to do that so far in non-preseason games. Christian Watson is also trending out. He didn't practice today, but Aaron Jones did. Aaron Jones hurt having him out of my lineups a lot last week. I had one of the worst weeks record wise across my leagues in fantasy, like the history of me playing fantasy football. It was a crap show. And, you know, the Saquon injury didn't help. And the Aaron Jones injury being out was, hurt me a lot. So I'm anticipating Aaron Jones getting back on the field, and even if he's in a limited capacity, he's still going to produce. So out on
Absolutely.
Watson, in on Jones.
Yeah. Pacheco came up limited today, so keep an eye on his status heading into Sunday. Derrick Henry was a DNP on Thursday. Could have been a vet day, but another situation to keep an eye on. And I'd be looking at Tajay Spears. Even if Henry's playing with a little bang up, his role could expand even more headed into week 3 here.
Yeah, if Tyjae Spears is on your waiver wire, go ahead and grab him. Um, he should be rostered anyway, but if he's not, like, take advantage of that. Um, we all want to think of Derrick Henry as Superman, but he has hit the age cliff and he's past it. So if he's going to be dealing with nagging things like this, normally a veteran day is Wednesday.
Yeah,
He didn't practice today on a Thursday, and that's usually not a good sign.
yeah,
Again, it's Derrick Henry, and the man is a machine. He's made out of steel and sinew. There, I don't understand how humans can be made the way that he is, but he's there, and if he plays, he's going to play. Tajay might get a little bit more run than normal. You have to start Henry just
hmm
because he's Derrick Henry, but again, grab Spears if he's on your waiver wire, and in Dynasty, maybe try and make a low ball offer for Spears just in case, and then monitor the situation. And if Henry's out, then you got your substitute right there.
yeah. I got a big spoiler alert. I got a dynasty dilemma coming up on Tajay Spears, and
Nice.
and he's a nice buy for me in that one. So just a snippet of what's gonna come up the line here.
Yeah, and don't forget about Julius Chestnut
Yeah,
if Derrick Henry has to miss some time.
exactly. Bryce Young popped up on the injury report Wednesday and hasn't practiced all week yet, so looking doubtful. So even worse situation there in Carolina. Yeah, could be a gong show headed forward if Bryce Young is out.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud last week being questionable heading into the weekend was the thing that scared me into grabbing Davis Mills in a league. And luckily, I don't have any Bryce Young shares, but I wouldn't hesitate to go grab Andy Dalton if you have a need at quarterback, but
Yeah,
only if he's going to play.
yeah, for sure. And then there's Joe Burrow. I've been inactive on the waiver wire in the leagues I've had Burrow shares in. Burrow will probably play in this one, but until I see Burrow put up a great game, I'll proceeding with caution. With the Bengals playing Monday, I am starting QB1 overall Kirk Cousins this week over Burrow in one of my leagues. Um, yeah, and that's the kind of the situation we're in right now, and I think that's going to be the foreseeable future until we can see Burrow. This season actually might be a complete write-off for the Bengals at this stage of the game.
I mean, it's hard to start 0-3, so they're hoping to pull out a win this weekend. I'm in the European Fantasy Football Charity event, and it's a best ball, but there's full waivers, and I went ahead and picked up Jake Browning this week, dropping Marcus Mariota, who was my long shot play. What killed me was the fact that the Bengals play on Monday night. So we're not going to know anything going into the early games on Sunday or the late games on Sunday or the night game on Sunday.
Yeah,
So whoever you have, you have to know, you have to imagine that Burrow's not going to play, because if you hold out waiting for him to play, it's going to be Monday night and it's going to be too late anyway. So then you're left with Jake Browning. So whoever you have to, whatever you have to do, act as if Joe Burrow isn't going to play. And I had him as a sit last week. He's not right. So even if he comes back, he's not going to. He's probably not going to do much for you anyway. So proceed as if he's out.
yeah, and the way that the Rams are playing right now too, that's not a gimme game for the Bengals right now. So they may be forced to have to put Burrow in, and because their season could be on the line here.
Yeah, I love how the Rams are just torpedoing consensus right now.
Exactly. Barkley out. We know about that already. Huge blow. I mean, we could see the difference that offense is even right now in this game against the 49ers. They just can't move the ball at all. So big blow. Hopefully, that extra long week because they play on Monday night now after this game, the Giants. So hopefully we can see Barkley back for week 4. But there's not much news about how severe his injury really is.
Well, that's the thing, and I mentioned this last week. I really wish that there was, and this is fantasy football manager whining, but I really wish that there was a more definitive way to track injuries in the NFL each week, because Barkley came out and said he was fine. The team came out and said, "Oh, it's a low ankle sprain," and then it was revealed today that it's a high ankle sprain, and those take longer to heal. So I don't imagine Barkley's going to miss a whole lot of time. I do think he should be back next week for Monday night. So it's going to hurt having him out today, but I don't know if I was going to play him anyway. That 49ers defense is really tough. So it's wait till next week.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Amon-Ra St. Brown with that toe injury. Didn't practice Wednesday. He looked banged up the whole game against the Seahawks. He's day-to-day. He did practice today, so it's looking good for him headed into this week. David Montgomery, we know him. He's doubtful to play this week. We are hoping that Gibbs can be more involved. They did spend all that draft capital on him, so I don't know why they are slow playing him at this stage of the game when they need to they need to get him involved, I think.
He might just not know all the blitz pickups at this point and not be ready to have a 60% snap share or 45% snap share or whatever. I do think that he's going to get a little bit more play this week. Craig Reynolds is sitting there, and he's been with the Lions for a while, so whatever they need out of David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds will be able to step in. And then as far as Amon-Ra, he has a plate for turf toe in his sorry, he has a plate for turf toe in his cleats, so he should be able to go. He's going to get a cortisone shot and play in pain. That's what they do. There's a difference between being injured and hurt, and he's hurt. So
yeah, totally. So now we got like 3 concussions to go over. We got Waddle, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. Neither did Anthony Richardson. So I'm looking elsewhere there. For Waddle, Devontae Chain might step up. We might see Braxton Berrios take on a bigger role, and then maybe Durham Smythe as a sleeper tight end. Who knows? With that passing offense, we could see some important stuff there coming from those guys. What do you think there?
Yeah, and one of the two of us really likes Durham Smythe. So you go ahead and take him. I'll grab Braxton Berrios. It's not that I don't like Durham Smythe. He had a ton of targets in week 1. So it's not like he's irrelevant or anything. We have to keep an eye on Jalen Waddle. Hopefully he does play. But yeah, Braxton Berrios is he's a capable receiver, and it's not the best situation if you have to insert Durham Smythe or Braxton Berrios in one of your flex spots to take over for Waddle. But hopefully your bench is deeper than that anyway, and you have somebody else who's waiting to take the step up with Waddle out.
Yeah, I had to start Brock Purdy tonight in the Scott Fish Bowl because I just don't know what Anthony Richardson's status is going to be. And chances are, with those concussions, he's probably going to miss a game, especially if he hasn't practiced yet. To pass all the protocols that the league has. What are your thoughts? Do you think he plays?
I think he does. I don't think that it was a bad concussion. I think it was precautionary that they pulled him out of the game when they did, and he should be able to play. I would go with Minshew if Richardson's not going to play. Purdy is a good call tonight. He already has, as of this recording, one touchdown to one of my favorite wide receiver handcuffs in deep best ball leagues, Ronnie Bell. Sorry,
Bell.
Yeah. Ronnie Bell of Bell Biv DeVoe fame. But yeah, I don't. It to me, Richardson's concussion didn't seem that bad, um, but what do I know?
Yeah. Okay. We'll see what happens there. And then two of your Raiders suffering concussions. Looks like both of them practiced today, and it's great news for the team because they're probably going to need them against this winnable game against the Steelers. So hopefully they're both back, Adams and Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, yesterday I read that Myers was a 75% chance to play, and Devontae Adams was just over a 50% chance to play. So again, neither of those were pretty severe, but Adams does have a history of concussions, and that was a pretty gnarly hit that he took, I believe, from Justin Simmons on Sunday.
Hmm.
But it's Devontae Adams. You gotta play him. There you just don't have a choice. And he's going against the Steelers, so he wants to get in there, and it's just a rivalry game.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully we see both of those guys and we see a good show in there. So on to the starts and sits of the week. What do you got here for us today?
All right. Well, I had a pretty good week last week. I called uh, Kirk Cousins. I called. Uh, dang it, my brain is gone. I'm sick, guys, so I apologize. I had a lot of really really good calls last week. This week I'm going to start off with Matthew Stafford. So Matthew Stafford has finished within the top 24 both weeks of the season, and that's what we're doing. We're looking for guys who are going to play in Superflex. He's throwing the ball an average of 45 times per game, so that's the volume that we're looking for. He's at his best when he throws the ball 700 times a season. Last week, he outscored Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, and he was just zero point 0.7 points behind Justin Fields. And that was playing against the Niners, who, if you're watching this game against the Giants, they're shutting it down. Not that the Giants are much to shake a stick at, but that was against the Niners last week. This week he plays against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is trying to claw back into it, but their defense has only 3 sacks in the last 2 games, so it's not like Stafford's going to be under a lot of pressure. He's got historic target monster Puka Nacua with 35 targets in 2 games somehow that he's going to be throwing the ball to. Cincinnati's also only allowed one interception, and they gave up 415 yards to Baltimore. So Baltimore doesn't usually put a whole lot of yards up on the board. They try and use a run control type game plan, and they still got 415 yards against Cincinnati. So I can see it being a really productive day for Stafford and all of his pass catchers.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, you got to run the hot hand, and like you said earlier, there, with the Burrow news, you might actually find Matthew Stafford on the waiver wire in some leagues there, and he's probably a better play than Burrow is this week. So look out for him.
I've
Absolutely.
already I've already picked him up, and I do have to, kind of like say this caveat on these starts, sits, and streams and everything. I put my money where my mouth is. These people go into my lineups or come out of my lineups. It's not like I'm just throwing names out there. If I say start Matthew Stafford, it means that in some of my leagues, I'm starting Matthew Stafford, and that goes for everybody that I start and everybody that I sit. So I do what I say.
Me too. I 100% agree with that. I'm not telling you guys to start somebody that I wouldn't put in my lineup. Like I said, I'm starting Matthew Stafford over Joe Burrow this week, so I'm doing it. Uh,
That's a good call, Mike.
yeah. After going undefeated in most redraft leagues, Hunter Henry was snatched up in most leagues after week 1 performance against the Eagles. He was a favorite streamer. Last week, I said on the show that he would become a weekly starter before long. I guess that time has come sooner than later. After his week 2 performance versus the Dolphins, Hunter Henry has now racked up 11 receptions for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns in 2 games. Good enough to be the tight end 2 overall. The Patriots are on pace to throw the ball 800 plus times this year. Obviously, this is not going to sustain. However, Henry has carved out himself a role, at least as a second receiving option on this team, and has the trust of Mac Jones. I'm looking for Henry to continue to emerge as a tight end 1, and I'm expecting him to hit pay dirt against the Jets team that gave up 2 touchdowns to the Dallas Cowboys tight ends last weekend.
Absolutely. Hunter Henry's a smash. We talked about it last week. I thought he was going to have a big breakout last year with the Patriots, but he somehow didn't. And he just got lost in the shuffle with Jonnu Smith and everything. This year, it's Hunter Henry's time. He's shown when he was in San Diego that he can produce. So I think he's a smash, and I do think he's going to sustain it all year long.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's so we're digging for scraps right now in the tight end landscape, and anything we can get, especially if we could pick somebody up on the waiver wire after week 1 or 2, that's a huge addition.
Absolutely.
Okay, who do you got
All right.
next?
I got Raheem Mostert. So Raheem Mostert's career has been all of us. It's kind of like Rashad Penny last year. It's all of us waiting for Mostert to have his time to shine. And for some reason or another, when he's in there, he does really well, and then he gets hurt. As long as he's healthy, Raheem Mostert is a top running back in the NFL. He has weeks at RB18 and RB5 in the last 2 weeks. He rushed for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Patriots last week, and the Patriots have a fairly good run defense. This week he gets Denver. Denver allowed 129 total yards and 2 touchdowns in their own house to Brian Robinson. Now they travel to Miami. It's going to be hot. It's going to be Raheem Mostert is going to be in his element, and the Denver Broncos defense is not. And it looks like it's going to be storming in Miami when they play. So I'm totally looking for Raheem Mostert to have a huge game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I said that one of our podcasts weeks ago. He was a start for me, and I just said to ride him out until he gets injured. So hopefully that lasts a couple more weeks, and we get some good production from him.
Absolutely.
So my next start is Jordan Addison. I was actually really reluctant to start Jordan Addison to start the year, especially in week 1. I got more comfortable starting him in week 2, and now he's full wheels ahead for me in week 3. Addison has started his rookie campaign strong as the wide receiver 19 after 2 games. Addison has 7 receptions for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 16.2 PPR points per game. The Vikings are now facing the LA Chargers in the highest projected point total of the week, and by a huge margin. This game has the potential to be an absolute shootout. I'm expecting fireworks. Look for Addison to build off of his strong start to his career with another strong showing against the Chargers.
Totally agree. This year's rookie drafts came down to basically who do you want? Do you want Jordan Addison? Do you want Quentin Johnston, or do you want Jackson Smith and Jigba? Because not a lot of people, unless they had made a lot of trades, were going to get all 3 of them or any combination of the 2. One of the things that I looked forward to in my rookie drafts was Quentin Johnston's potential for taking over the wide receiver room in LA versus Jordan Addison's potential to take over for Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. So for that reason, in dynasty leagues, I took a lot of Quentin Johnston and not a lot of Jordan Addison. In redraft, I knew that Addison was going to come out of the gate a lot better than the other 2 guys, and so I took more Jordan Addison than I took the other guys. Some of the things that I saw from Addison this last week, some of the routes that he was thrown to, those are veteran routes. Those are not routes that rookie wide receivers are, getting token looks on. Those are guys that are involved in the game plan. So Jordan Addison is a smash.
And he looks legit. He looks the part. Absolutely. Who do you got next?
I'm looking at my second-year breakout guy, George Pickens. Now, Pickens doesn't have the best quarterback throwing to him, and we know that. He was also behind Deontay Johnson, the ultimate target hog. All we were waiting for with Pickens was the opportunity to be the target leader in Pittsburgh. He arrived last week. With Johnson out, Pickens had a career-high 10 targets. He was only able to bring in 4 of those, but Kenny Pickett doesn't throw a lot of passes on target. So he had four catches against Cleveland. Cleveland's pass defense is really, really tough. He had a huge play for over 70 yards, and he scored. This week, he goes against my Las Vegas Raiders. They're a suspect pass defense. They allowed 7 catches on 7 targets to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a better route runner than George Pickens, but if he's catching everything that's thrown to him, I mean, the Raiders aren't doing their job. So Pickens isn't Diggs, but the Raiders aren't the Browns either. So I look for Pickens to have a huge target share this week. He doesn't have a lot of competition in Calvin Austin. He doesn't have a lot of competition in Allen Robinson. He might be splitting an equal share with Pat Freiermuth, but that still remains to be seen because, and it's Kenny Pickett. But still, if George Pickens can lead in targets, George Pickens can have a really huge day against the Raiders. So put him in your
Yeah.
lineup.
Yeah, I would put him there, and I'm starting to come around a little bit on Pickens. I've been a huge advocate against him, but he's looking good. I said that one of two things needed to happen. Either Pickett needed to emerge as a top 12 quarterback. Obviously, not going to happen. Not in a Matt Canada offense, but he would need to supplant past Deontay Johnson, and that's happening right now because of that injury. Unfortunately, we'll see what Pickens can do with his opportunity. 10 targets, 4 catches, not the greatest, but that one slant play he made for and went to the house on, he looked amazing on. So I think all it takes is one of those, and he's gone. And if he's getting the ball 10 times, he's got a bigger opportunity of breaking one of those big plays. So until Deontay Johnson is back, I think for sure Pickens is a huge he's got a lot of upside there, and if he can emerge now when Deontay does come back, he could be playing second fiddle to George Pickens. So yeah, I'm on Pickens this week.
Yeah, we did a Dynasty Dilemma video
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
against Pickens. And, Pickens, he's one of those guys where he's not going to do a great number of things, but the number of things that he does are going to be spectacular. And he's just so fun to watch. So hopefully he can turn those abilities that he has that haven't been showcased, turn those into some really productive fantasy games while Deontay Johnson is out, and give the Steelers a good reason to move on from Deontay next year.
agreed. Okay, my next start is wide receiver 6 in PPR after 2 weeks. Nico Collins. CJ Stroud has found his alpha, and Collins is averaging 10 targets per game. When the Texans have to throw the ball on average 45 times a game, there is bound to be many fantasy producers. Collins is balling out with his new QB. The Texans should be in a negative game script, playing behind pretty much this whole season. They are now playing a potent Jaguars offense, looking to get going after a disappointing outing versus the Chiefs, where they only scored 9 points. The Jaguars are set to go off versus the Texans in week 3, and Collins will be the immediate benefactor of extra targets, especially in this garbage time that is probably going to happen.
Yeah, I love Nico Collins. I've had him pegged as a year 3 breakout all preseason long. I waited on him in the fishbowl. I was pleasantly rewarded. He had a good week for me last week. If you recall, I had him in my starts last week, and I think it's going to be a big year for Nico. So I'm bullish on him this weekend. So for the sits, last week Daniel Jones wasn't my best call. I said to sit him, and he finished as QB1 in most formats this week, and take it for what it's worth. But I don't trust Geno Smith. I'm sitting Geno Smith. So he had a great week against the Lions in week 2. This week he gets a matchup with Carolina. The Panthers want to slow the game down. That's kind of their MO. But that fits right into what Carroll's plans are. He'll bank on Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet getting the workload with a positive game script anyway. The Panthers only allowed 221 yards to the Falcons, and they only allowed 20 points to the Saints. So if you're looking for somebody who's going to be throwing 350 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, Geno Smith isn't going to be it this week. So don't expect much scoring from the game. Take the under if you're betting on the game and sit Geno.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be more defensive than we think for sure. Especially with Sanders being a little banged up, and we don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Young either. So I see a conservative game there, and Yeah, the Seahawks could be up as well and playing with the lead, which would turn into, like a Kenneth Walker Charbonnet game, like you mentioned. So absolutely. Uh
You had,
Damian
yeah,
Pierce.
sorry.
I seem to have a lot more Damian Pierce shares than I'm currently comfortable with. Negative game scripts and an offensive line is where we are at with Damian Pierce. Many thought Pierce would be a high end RB2. Well, Pierce is averaging 33 yards per game and a 2.5 yards per carry. Not going to cut it. In addition to this, Pierce's snap share has fallen to 46%. Not great for someone we were drafting as a workhouse back. This O line is so bad. Pierce was literally getting hit behind the line of scrimmage on every one of his carries last week. To add to this, the game scripts have been unfavorable to the run game heading into halftime. The Texans will need to be in games in order for Pierce to be fantasy relevant. Like I mentioned with Nico Collins, this game will be out of hand early, I'm guessing, and pretty much closing the door for the run game.
Yeah, I have a lot of Damian Pierce shares as well. Um, One of the things about him is that he did pretty well last year, up until he was kind of banged up at the end of the season. And when he gets a good workload, he gets a lot of. He's one of those guys like Connor James Connor, where with a huge workload, he's going to be able to produce as a top 24, top 12 running back. But if he's not getting that, if the O line isn't blocking for him, if CJ Stroud uh, figures out that he can throw for 350, 400 yards a game, those kinds of things aren't going to be in Damian Pierce's favor. So I would sit him this week as well, and I would look to move him if you can get something good for him.
Well, the big thing with Damian Pierce coming in the offseason was that he was going to get targeted more, and he's not getting any sort of passing work whatsoever.
Right. And that might just be a circumstance of the way that their games have gone so far. Um, who's to say that the Texans are actually playing the games that they want to play at this point, and maybe it gets better for them, but I wouldn't count on it this week.
Absolutely. Okay, what's your next one?
All right, so I teased it earlier. My sit this week, one of them is Jerome Ford. So I want to ask all you viewer a question: how much fab did you spend this week on Ford?
Hmm.
I bid 51% of my fab in one league, and I didn't get him. I got outbid for 51% of my fab. The league that I got him in, I spent 54% of my fab. Uh, Now he's the replacement for Chubb. Hunt isn't going to take him much away, I don't think. But this Titans defense is for real. They led the NFL in rushing yards allowed last year. They haven't missed a beat. They've allowed 39 yards to Josh Kelly last week. They allowed 45 yards to a healthy Jamal Williams in week one. They're allowing 2.7 yards per carry against RB1s in the NFL. Now, granted, that's Jamal Williams and Josh Kelly, but it stands, and it's Jerome Ford that we're looking at. He'll be fine from week 3 on. I think. He's the go-to guy in Cleveland, and we've all seen what Chubb can do behind that offensive line. That offensive line is good, but for this week, he's a sit. He's not gonna do anything against the Titans. Nobody's gonna do anything against the Titans all year. I may just have whoever the running back is against the Titans in this starts and sits all season long. They're good.
Yeah, and you know what? The Browns don't look right whatsoever right now. I know even before the Chubb injury, I mean that's their season right there. Chubb is their whole season, but Deshaun Watson does not look right. He's not making his reads proper. Um, so I'm not looking. I'm not looking for any piece going forward anyway of this Browns offense. I don't think.
I would be comfortable with Jerome Ford later. Just give it
Okay.
some time.
Okay. My next sit is Marquise Brown. The Cardinals don't look as pathetic as many thought. Josh Dobbs actually looks serviceable. Marquise Brown earned 10 targets in week 2 and finished the game with a decent day, 6 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He's starting to earn the trust of fantasy managers. Unfortunately, I'll be waiting at least a week before considering to plug him into any lineup. The Cardinals are facing the Dallas Cowboys. Uh, in 2 games have only given up 10 points. The Cowboys defense is going to make Joshua Dobbs' life a living hell, and I would not be starting any Cardinal in this one other than maybe a dart throw at Zach Ertz.
I'm starting Connor where I have to. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I have to start him, and I mean, with just the dynamic of the running back position. I mean, obviously James Conner is a no brainer at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, the like you said, the Cardinals aren't as bad as you think they are, but the Dallas Cowboys defense, just like the Titans run defense, the Dallas Cowboys are for real, and Micah Parsons is not going to let Josh Dobbs have a good day. They're as advertised.
Yeah, unfortunate about that Diggs injury today too. That popped up. Dallas looked like a contender. They still are, but that's a big blow to them.
Yeah, he had a good couple games. He's less of a lockdown corner and more of a kind of a ball hawking kind of floating corner. So I don't think his loss is going to affect the team that much as far as their ability to prevent a good passing offense from throwing on them.
Yeah,
I just think they're good. So
they are very good.
all right, my last sit is going to be Cortland Sutton. So Jerry Jeudy is back on the field. Marvin Mims is making his presence felt. Despite the finish last week, Russell Wilson is still not very good. Last week, Sutton finished as the wide receiver 27, or sorry, Sutton finishes wide receiver 27 in week 1 against the Raiders, and I feel like that's his ceiling. This week he plays Miami. It's probably going to be stormy. Miami held the Mac Jones Patriots to 204 yards passing last week. If touchdowns are limited, which it looks like they're going to be, the ball is going to other receivers, and there's a run game, heavy game script for Denver. And Sutton is touchdown dependent, not volume dependent. Then he's a sit. Now I'll admit I've never liked Sutton, but even if I liked him, I wouldn't start him this week.
Yeah, no, that's a tough situation there. So my last sit here is another brutal situation. Garrett Wilson deserves better than Zach Wilson. I was expecting week 3 to roll around and Rodgers, Wilson, taking the league by storm. Now we have to settle for Zach Wilson throwing the ball. When your quarterback hasn't passed more than 170 yards in a game, ring the alarm. Unfortunately, Garrett Wilson will be dependent on touchdowns in order for him to be fantasy relevant. You never want to rely solely on touchdown production, but we are going to have to as long as Zach Wilson is the quarterback in New York. Heading against the Patriots, who are known to take away their opponent's best option, is going to have a rough afternoon. The Patriots were able to slow down Tyreek last week. Shutting down Wilson will be their top priority. And Garrett Wilson is a little banged up as well. So most of us who have Wilson will need to start him, but if you can, look for production elsewhere.
Yeah, I heavily invested in Garrett Wilson this year. He's so good, but there's a point where even if you're quarterback independent, you have to have a quarterback. And in a similar situation to DJ Moore, where the guy just has talent off the charts, Justin Fields isn't doing a lot to move the ball around in that offense, and neither is Zach Wilson. They were both ranked in the bottom of DVOA last year as far as starting quarterbacks were concerned. And what looked like a huge breakout year for Garrett Wilson turned into a wait and see every week based on matchups year for Garrett Wilson. He'd be better off if they brought Joe Flacco in. There's lots of rumors about a Stafford trade. There's lots of rumors about a Kirk Cousins trade. But the Jets need to do something quick, especially if they want to, take Stafford away from a Rams team that put some wins under their belt, or a Vikings team getting Cousins from a Vikings team that seems to turn it around in the next couple weeks. So we'll see what happens. But for now, Garrett Wilson is not looking like a good option this week.
I'm going to whisper a low key name that could actually end up in New York to you is Jameson Winston. That would be a good fit. He's probably the best backup in the league right now. And That would be a great. I mean, I'm just being selfish. I would love to see him there,
Yeah,
chucking the ball to Garrett Wilson, but
yeah.
um, but I
Yes.
heard that rumor. I heard that rumor today, and you never know. Like the Jets, put a lot of money into this team this year, and they were trying to make a run for it. Who knows?
It's been thrown around a little bit, and like the potential for Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson gets behind the defense. Garrett Wilson reminds me a lot of Devonte Adams. He can get behind the defense based on just like his route running skills and then hitting top speed, getting behind people. And if Jameis Winston has somebody that he can just like close his eyes and chuck the ball as far down the field as he can, Garrett Wilson could get under it, and the two would be a pretty great match together. The problem is with Jameis Winston is the Saints have Derek Carr. And why would they want to move on from Jameis Winston when he's a capable backup and Jake Haener went out with PED violation, so he's lost for the year. So I don't see the Saints doing that. I see the Saints competing this year and them wanting to hang on to Jameis just in case. Because I mean he's like they love him there, so I don't see that happening. But if it did happen, it wouldn't shock me. I think the Jets could put a package together that would get it done. And I just, I would bet on Cousins or Stafford going first.
Okay.
But I do
Okay.
like your idea. All right. So every week we also bring you streaming options for defense and tight end. This week I'm starting in the Miami defense against Denver. The Dolphins are going to control the ball and won't allow much to the Broncos. Now you might sense a theme. I have Raheem Mostert in my starts. I have Cortland Sutton in my sits, and I have the Dolphins defense as a start as a streaming option. So I'm really high on the Dolphins this week to just go out and destroy the Browns. Dolphins were +3 in turnovers against the Patriots, who tend to be very conservative and hold on to the ball. They also had 4 sacks. So I feel like we're going to see a really, really nice game out of the Miami defense.
So you're putting $100 on the Broncos then, right?
No. No.
So last week I gave you the Bucks who clobbered the Bears, and I'm hoping for an encore. So the Chiefs are ranked right now as the defense round 14, heading into week 3, and now they get a juicy matchup against that same Bears team that already looks defeated. They're playing at Arrowhead, where they need to give that crowd a show after losing in week 1 to the Lions. So hoping for a good bounce back there, and if the Chiefs are floating around there on your waiver wire or whatever, I'd be looking to pick them up because I think they have a good matchup next week as well.
I already did. All right.
Mm.
At tight end, my streaming option this week is Cade Otton. Otton is on nobody's radar. Last week, though, he finished as tight end 12, and that's what we're doing here. And that was against the Bears. So this week he gets the Eagles, and the Eagles don't care about opposing tight ends, or at least their defensive game plan would suggest that. They're busy getting sacks. They're busy locking down wide receivers. So they allow more fantasy points to tight end than any other team in the NFL. Again, the Philadelphia Eagles allow more points to tight ends than any other team. So Otton comes in. He had 6 catches on 6 targets last week for a resurgent Baker Mayfield, who I said to start. Last year, Otton had 5 games with 6 or more targets, and in 3 of those games, he finished as tight end 12, tight end 4, and tight end 1. He's finished as a tight end 12 or better 5 times in his career, 18 games. And in every one of those games, he had 5 or more targets. So when you add that to the fact that the Eagles give up more points to tight ends than anybody else, he's more than capable with the volume, and he should get that this week. So I'm all in on Cade Otton.
Yeah, I like Cade Otton a lot. And I like him in Dynasty too. I think he's got some good upside there as well. Young guy, he's commanding those targets, and it's a young team that's the future is uncertain, and you never know. Yeah, he could be a landing spot for Caleb Williams, so that would be a really good situation.
Ooh,
Who knows?
don't get started.
Yeah, I know. My streamer this week. Last week I gave you Hunter Henry. This week I'm gonna give you Sam Laporta. He is averaging 5.5 targets per game, and now the Lions will be out David Montgomery and a banged up Amon-Ra St. Brown. Laporta has impressed to start the year and should keep building off of the good start of the season. Just a gut check. I mean, he is in the top 10. I think he's actually like ranked number 4 or something right now, but he's not typically like he's in the top 10, but he's not being ranked there in rankings right now. So that's why I kind of throw a dart throw, especially with the way the tight end, landscape is right now.
Yeah, I love Sam Laporta. In the leagues that I didn't have him in, it's impossible to find him. He's not on any waiver wires in the leagues that I'm in. However, the leagues that I have him in, he's definitely a start. So
Awesome. Well, we've covered quite a bit heading into week 3. I want to thank everybody who's joined us. Remember to like and subscribe to our stuff.
comment and
Um,
share too. If you comment, then we know what we can work on to get better. And then if you share it, there will be more people who will be able to comment.
yeah. And just remember that Brandon and I will be, doing this weekend warm up every Thursday, headed into the weekend, all through the season. Do you want to remind everybody where they can find you and your content?
Go to Twitter and search at Big Boned FFB. On that Twitter account, you'll find my Substack, and you can also find me on YouTube at Big Boned FFB, where I'm dropping content. So come and find me, and again, like and subscribe. How about
Yeah.
you, Mike? Where can we find you?
Find me, same spot, Twitter at FFCanuck99, and all my written content at dynastypros.com. And we're bringing, you know, all season long, you're going to find us there. And we appreciate everybody tuning in. We hope that you have a really great week 3 and hope that our predictions come to fruition.
Hope you guys win.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Out.
Out.
For having me.